Okay guys, the bus to take us to the airport for this trip to Portugal is coming shortly. Just need one win from these last two games and we're through. But I want a much better performance than we put out last time against Dortmund, okay? We so far haven't put together a 90-minute performance in this group. I want to see one these next two games and make sure we go through in top spot, okay?
Looking for trouble and fights, but you found me. No, I'm a screw up, but baby, I'm glad you're someone to rely on, someone to rely on. No, I'm a screw up, but baby, I could be someone to rely on, someone to rely on, someone to rely on.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 172 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well. And coming up in today's episode, we have the last two games of the Champions League group stage for 2035-36. First off, a trip away to Portugal to take on Famalicão, and off the back of that, we host Oostende, only needing one win from those two games to secure ourselves top spot for the first knockout round draw, which will happen towards the end of today's episode. And as well as that, we'll also check in on field here in HK in the Conference League, with both of those teams still in with a sneaky chance of getting out of their groups. But if you are looking forward to today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But not much has happened off the back of the game in yesterday's episode, as well as the end of season review. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it in the top right corner. But we did only manage a draw at home against Dortmund, and we were probably quite lucky to get that draw because they did have a penalty and big Carl Waller made a big save to make sure that we did come out of that game with a point, and that was enough for us to make sure that we did make our way through to the first knockout round with a couple of games spare. Famalicão and Dortmund do look like they are in a battle for that second spot, and we could have a bit of a say in that in today's episode, albeit I think the second game of today's one on the other side of the draw between Dortmund and Famalicão is going to be the most important one. That second game might not actually have much bearing, so if it doesn't, we'll just show you guys the highlights of that one and then update you guys on who else makes their way through from this group if we do get the job done like we really should be doing against a Famalicão team who we did beat 6-0 on the very first match week, albeit that was in Iceland, and off the back of that, they went back to Portugal and did beat Dortmund 2-1, albeit that was against 10-man Dortmund, albeit that was only for the last 6 minutes. They are definitely a much more dangerous team, it does look like, when they are in Portugal. But nothing has changed since that game that we did play in yesterday's episode against Dortmund in terms of our personnel, no new injuries. So we're going into this game against Famalicão with the same lineup, and we'll come back shortly and get into the action out of Portugal and try and secure ourselves top spot in this group with a game to spare. And 7 minutes into this game, we have the first highlight. Famalicão in the all-white, we are in our all-green, and so far Famalicão have been on top of us, albeit just the one shot in this game, so not too sure how far on top of us they have been, but they do look to play out from the back here with this highlight. If they pick up a win here, or even a point, that will certainly keep them in the hunt to finish second in this group, albeit there's an interception off the back of a poor pass, as Dortmund have already taken a 1-0 lead there at home against Oostende, so that will put Dortmund above Famalicão for now, and hopefully, as I said, we pick up a win here and make our way through to that first knockout round on top. And that's a nice ball there from Adam Saki, and Bayer tucks that away in the bottom left corner. And the first highlight, despite the fact that Famalicão did have possession for quite a bit of it, they give it away, and a nice ball there from Adam Saki for Bayer. Saki picking up an assist. Krollo plays that up to him, and Bayer makes a run, very Kalen Rakasan-like from previous years, puts that away, and just shy of the 10-minute mark, it's 1-0 Volsungur. And we go forward to the 32-minute mark for our next highlight. It's a free kick here for Famalicão, and it does roll safely into the hands of Wallen. Had a bit of a scare there for a minute because that did look quite unthreatening. Thought that Wallen might there have a bit of a curious moment, but thankfully he is far too good for that, and we look to play out from the back here with a 1-0 lead, albeit so far this has been quite an even game, not our best performance yet again, coming off the back of that 0-0 draw yesterday against Dortmund, but this time we have at least taken a chance nice and early and do have a lead on the scoreboard, but we give the ball away, and Famalicão are inside our half here and look to build something and try and grab an equaliser. They play that forward, they do keep possession. Lopez, but a good slide tackle there from Herrera, but the ball's given back to them, and that's a decent shot there from Robin, but thankfully it just goes wide, and we're still 1-0 up with 10 minutes left in the first half. And we go forward now to the 40-minute mark for our next highlight, and hopefully this time it is one in our favour. We have a throw-in inside the opposition half. Agatire back to Crollo, but that's a poor pass. Spencer will clear that, but Filippo Dinelli has a lot of time to get us back on the front foot here, and he does take his time just standing on the spot under absolutely no pressure, but we eventually try and go forward, albeit that's a really poor pass that time from Bassero Gay, and the player of the shot before Robin gets possession back for Famalicão, so having a decent little spell here off the back of us grabbing the lead. Lopez puts the ball far post, they put it back down, and that's a decent block off the shot there from Sidey. In fact, it was actually a save from Vollen. I thought a defender might have got in the way of that shot, but that was nearly an equaliser for Famalicão, a corner, and that goes just over the bar. So a decent spell here, as I said, for Famalicão, just shy of half time, but we are still 1-0 up, and we have one more highlight here, straight off the back of that chance for Famalicão. We eventually get the ball back. It was a little bit hairy there, and we play that out to Jonata down our left-hand side, and therefore Bayer will crank that into the top right corner. What a strike. And so far, Benvenu Bayer is saving us a bit in this game, because we've looked very average for Famalicão with all the highlights apart from the two that we've scored, and it has been Benvenu Bayer who has provided the moments of magic, and somehow we're going to go into half-time here with a 2-0 lead, which does feel very, very flattering, but that is one heck of a strike from Bayer, very similar to the goal which Voskanyan scored and got goal of the season in yesterday's episode. But I think that means we're going to take a 2-0 lead into half-time, albeit Famalicão have certainly been probably the better team in this half so far, based on the stats that you can see, but we have been better with our shots on target, largely thanks to that man, Benvenu Bayer. But it hasn't been the greatest performance so far in this first half. I think we'll send a message to the boys here just a little bit. Filippo Dinelli only on a 6.5. Richard Waswa can come on for him, and hopefully we just improve our performance a little bit here in the second half and stop relying on Bayer quite so much, but in a good position to be topping this group with a game to play, albeit not actually going that well, even though we do take a 2-0 scoreline into the second half. And we go all the way forward to the 70-minute mark. So far, no highlights in the second half, albeit in terms of stats, we're starting to look a little bit better than we were in the first half. But we're going to make two substitutions here. Bruno Costa coming on for Lasana Dumbia on a red heart, and Radenko Crollo came into this one with a heavy match load, so we'll take him off as well for Pedro Lemos. That's all of our subs used. Still 2-0 up here, and it looks like we'll qualify in top spot with a game to play unless something goes wrong in these last 20 minutes. And we go forward a few minutes off the back of those last few substitutions. It was there for Famalicão trying to clear their lines, but we get back on the counter-attack. And Agatigere, nice ball over here for Jonata, just takes his time inside the box, back for Bayer, who is on a hat-trick. And we just take our time here outside of the box and knock the ball around. Nice ball there for Pedro Lemos in a lot of space, and that's a wonderful ball off of the bench for Jonata, and he will pick up a Champions League goal. Can't actually remember if he's scored too many of those in the past, but that is a big goal, and that will absolutely guarantee that we do go through in top spot with a game to spare. Also, Dortmund are beating Oostende as well, so I think that last game might not have too much riding on it, but that is a well-deserved goal in the second half, because we have looked, as you can see by the stats, a bit better in this part of the game, and 3-0 going into the last 10 minutes. And up to the 84-minute mark, we have one more highlight in this one. It is a throw-in, which we don't keep possession from, and it might be a chance here for Famalicão to get a goal back. Veloso on the ball will play that back for Furtado, and they find a little bit of space here through Sidey, albeit a poor pass there, and Luis Herrera plays that back to Wallen, and we might get a chance here to play out from the back and try and extend the scoreline to 4-0. Pedro Lemos, who had that good assist before for that Jonata goal, just holds the ball up here, back for Waswa and Bruno Costa. All of our substitutions linking up. Of course, Bayer is still on a hat-trick, but nice ball there from Jonata, but the Tigre shot just a little bit weak, and that will do it, I think, for this game. 3-0 with only a few minutes left. Now, I think this is going to set things up for a matchup in the last match week in this group between Dortmund and Famalicão for that second place spot, but we pick up a 3-0 win. Interesting to see that Saki picked up a minor injury late in that one, but as you can see by the XG graph, we certainly improved there in the second half. Still not our best performance. We have looked a little bit scratchy at times in this group, but we are still undefeated and are still going to be going through in top spot with a game to spare. As I said, I don't think there's going to be much riding on that second game of today's episode against Oostende, so early callers that we might only show you guys the highlights from that one, as they can't go past Dortmund anyway. so there's not really much point in showing you guys that one, and even a win there, I think, for them. They might not go past Famalicão with their head-to-head record anyway, so we'll go forward a little bit, check in on Phil Kerr and HK, do a little bit of a recap of what our team looks like for that second game of today's episode before we show you guys the highlights of that one off the back of that 3-0 win against Famalicão, which secures us top spot in the group for that first knockout round draw. And we're coming back a little bit earlier than expected because not too long off the back of that win against Famalicão before HK play their next game in the Conference League group stage, their manager has resigned. So this could actually be quite interesting for HK going through these last two games of the Conference League group stage without a manager. But this guy, Runar Pál Sigmundsson, has been there for a long time. He's been there for quite a bit of the save. He joined them back in 2022 after a year at Phil Kerr, and he's been there ever since. He has resigned because he was offered the Slovenian national job. So he has ditched HK down in the Conference League, is sick of finishing runner-up behind us in the league, it would seem, and he has moved on to international management, but that might have a little bit of an impact on HK in the latter stages of the Conference League. They are now without a full-time manager, and that could make things interesting, as I said, for their chances of qualifying out of their Conference League group. And there's one more little thing that I thought might be interesting before we do that first Conference League update for today's episode after the 5th match week, and that is this article, We Lead European Top League Player Development. So in this save, we've actually built up Volsungur so that we have the most players who were developed at this club playing in European football. 76 players will make our way down. As you can see, quite a few of them are still in Iceland. A few have just escaped to other countries, the likes of one of our former youth prospects in Gardason at Oostende, but quite a few players these days scattered amongst the various Icelandic clubs. As I said, a few players here and there who have gone offshore as well, mostly players who are in the latter half of their career, but we have certainly brought through quite a few players in the save when it did start all the way back in 2021. So we have had quite a bit of time, 76 players at top flight clubs around Europe, and that is about 11 better than the next team in Shakhtar, who have 65. And one more thing to cover off before we have a look at the Conference League and what happened on that 5th match week. We do have an overseas affiliate for the first time in this save, and that is the Vancouver Whitecaps. We had options of Vancouver, the Philadelphia Union, Melbourne Victory, and Macarthur FC. So 2 options from the MLS, 2 options from the A-League. We went for Vancouver because they had better facilities than both of the A-League clubs, and also I have a sneaky suspicion that picking a club in Canada might mean that there's a few French nationality players who might come through Vancouver who we might be able to get hold of just a little bit easier if that did become available, albeit that's not really the type of partnership that this is, but hopefully that's going to help improve the Volsungur brand worldwide. It does say it's going to improve things in terms of merchandise sales in the USA, even though Vancouver is, of course, in Canada, so that's a little bit interesting, but with MLS being American, I suppose that is what that means. But we've finally gone a little bit worldwide. We do have an affiliate club overseas, and it is the Vancouver Whitecaps, albeit if we do get the option again, I think we'd go back to the A-League if it was possible, and probably pair up with the Melbourne Victory and try and sort of rival us and the Victory with what is going on between Melbourne City and Manchester City over in England. But it is time for us to do our first Conference League update in today's episode. Going to be very interesting to see what happens here with HK off the back of them losing their manager for the last 2 games of the group stage. First off, we have Phil Kerr, who did get themselves in quite a good position earlier this week to get out of their group. Unfortunately, things have changed. They got beaten 3-0 at home there by Rheindorf Altex. They seem to be struggling against that Austrian team. That's a little bit disappointing because, of course, they did beat Bayer Leverkusen at home earlier this week, and that means they are bottom of the group. Still not quite sure why they are ranked below Botev Plovdiv, but their last game of the group stage is a trip to Germany to take on Bayer Leverkusen, who have already qualified top spot in that group. So I think Phil Kerr might be up against it, albeit that game is against the only team they have beaten so far in this group. So they're still in with a shot if results do go their way, but they are going to need quite a bit of luck there, I think it is fair to say, travelling to Germany. So that might be it for Phil Kerr in Europe this season. And down to Group G, where HK are, and unfortunately being managerless has not helped them because they suffer a 1-0 defeat against Lyngby at home. So HK continue to disappoint this European season, considering they were in the Europa League last season and a few seasons ago, the Champions League group stage bottom of the group, albeit if they somehow find a way to upset Leeds United, they could potentially jump above both Lyngby and Zelina, but still both of the Icelandic teams here look like they are in quite a bit of trouble, both bottom of the group with only one match week remaining. But we are about to play our last game of the group stages against Oostende at home. Absolutely nothing really riding on this game. As I said, I don't think Oostende are going to go above Famalicão with their record anyway. And of course, we have already qualified top out of our group. The main match in our group this upcoming match week is between Dortmund and Famalicão, just to lock in the team that does qualify second out of this group. But we have no injury concerns, fresh ones going into this game, so it's going to be exactly the same lineup that we used in the first game of today's episode. But we're just going to show you guys the highlights because, as I said, I don't think much is going to change in this game anyway in this group come the end of it. So we'll come back shortly and show you guys the highlights from our last game of the Champions League group stages as we take on Oostende. And here are the highlights from that last group stage game against Oostende. We had a free kick at 4 minutes. It was Denelli heading the ball there for Jonata in front of goal. He was deemed onside, and we grabbed a nice early 1-0 lead. And then a few minutes before half-time, Lasana Dumia with a free kick with a lot of help from the woodwork. They made it 2-0. And then just before half-time, yet again, nice ball there for Jonata from Bayer and chips the goalkeeper. Nothing happened in the second half, so yet again, a little bit of a disjointed performance, albeit you look at the stats, that was quite a convincing performance compared to most, at least since that very first match week where we picked up that 6-0 win against Famalicão. But that means that we pick up a 3-0 win to end things here in the group stage for the Champions League in 2035. And we go through having not lost a game, but what that means is we go through very comfortably out of our group with 16 points. And in the end, it was Borussia Dortmund who will go through in second off the back of that 1-0 win. They get some revenge for earlier in the group stages there, picking up that 1-0 win against Famalicão. So it is us and Dortmund making our way out of Group A, and Famalicão might be a little bit of a sneaky chance down in the Europa League after what they have shown against Dortmund, at least in the group stages of the Champions League. Oostende getting knocked out of Europe altogether. We'll have a quick look at the rest of the group results shortly, but before that, we've got an update just rounding things off down in the Conference League as well. Unfortunately, Phil Kerr could not pull off a repeat from earlier this week. They suffer a 3-1 defeat there away at Bayer Leverkusen, and that means they do finish bottom of their group after Botev Plovdiv pick up a draw away in Austria. So it didn't matter that weird tiebreaker that was going on anyway, because Phil Kerr for 1 point behind their Bulgarian opposition. But certainly I think that's the best group stage that Phil Kerr have had so far, even though they have still finished bottom of their group. And down to Group G, and checking in on HK as expected after their manager did leave them early on in today's episode. They suffer another defeat, this time away at Leeds. It was always going to be unlikely, and that was not helped by a red card off the back of the second goal, yet again to one of our former players in Mikhail Bedrzicki. But HK also finished bottom of the group. They really struggled in that group. That was quite a disappointing campaign from HK after they did finish third in a Europa League group last season. Quite a drop there from HK compared to prior seasons. So we are the only Icelandic team making our way through to the knockouts of European competition. We are about to take part in the first knockout round draw, but before then we'll just have a look at which teams we could get in this first knockout round draw with the results from the other Champions League groups. And here are how things ended up. Of course, we were in Group A. You know all about that one. Group B, this was quite a strong group. Two good teams coming out of this one. Chelsea in first spot, PSG in second. That would be a team that we definitely want to avoid. Group C, Manchester City end up with a perfect record in that group, just like Chelsea, and it is Inter Milan who just do enough to finish above Valencia into that second spot. Inter Milan, a team with quite a few of our former players, so that could be an interesting tie if we did take on the likes of Kalen Rakasan and Kenny Boreal in the first knockout round. Group D, Real Madrid topped that one, Hertha Berlin in second, just above Napoli. No fears there with Hertha Berlin. We've bet them before in a Europa League semi-final, I believe it was. Group E, Juventus finished top of that one, Arsenal in second. Of course, we thrashed Arsenal earlier this season in the Super Cup, so no fears there either. Group F, Barcelona on top, Lille in second. Benfica make their way through to the Europa League. I think we should be able to handle Lille, unlike a few seasons ago where I think they actually got past us in the first knockout round of the Europa League, but I think we've improved quite a bit since those days. Group G will probably need to bump things up on screen editing, Shaun, for this one, but Man United top of that group, AC Milan in second, again a team which we do have some good records against in recent history. In the save in Group H, this is another strong one. Bayern Munich do finish top of that group, but Liverpool are in second. Of course, the last time we played Liverpool was when they beat us in the Europa League final, so I think that's another team we might want to avoid, but for the most part, as long as we avoid PSG and Liverpool, I think we're going to do quite well here in this first knockout round draw, and it is time to get stuck into it. So, of course, we are a pot one team. Coming out first is going to be PSG. As I said, ideally, this would be one of the teams which we would want to avoid, and they get Manchester City. That is a big first knockout round tie. One of the bigger clubs in Europe will be going out of the competition nice and early. Next up are Dortmund. Of course, we can't get these guys because they were from our group. They will be taking on Juventus out of Italy. Next up, Inter Milan. As I said, this would be a very tasty matchup with Kalen Rakasan and Kenny Boreal on their books, but they will get Manchester United. That's another quite big matchup there for the first knockout round. Next up, Liverpool. This would be the other team I think we would like to avoid, albeit on that last match week, they did actually suffer a defeat against Anderlecht, so they're probably not as strong as they were back when they did win the Europa League, but they are taking on Barcelona. So Liverpool and Barcelona in the Champions League might be a corner taken quickly there for Liverpool to get through. Next up are Hertha Berlin. I think from this point on, not too phased about who we do get here in this first knockout round draw, but Hertha Berlin are taking on Chelsea. So that leaves Arsenal, Lille, and AC Milan for us. Next up are AC Milan, a team who we have faced in the knockouts of the Champions League quite a bit recently. They will take on Bayern Munich, and that leaves both Arsenal and Lille. Next up out of the hat are Lille, and that is who we are playing. Quite happy with that. Wouldn't have minded Arsenal either, though, of course, off the back of that good result we picked up against those guys in the Super Cup, and that means that it is going to be Arsenal versus Real Madrid in the last tie of the first knockout round. So come the start of next week, we'll come back for the first leg of that first knockout round against Lille, and that should be a team we are capable of beating. Of course, they come out of the group which Barcelona did top, just finished above Benfica to grab that second spot. That did look like a little bit of a weak group in this season's Champions League, so hopefully we can get the job done over those guys in the first knockout round. Having a look at them going into the little break here that we do have in Iceland before we come back early next week. They currently find themselves third in League A, playing a 4-4-2, but no overly scary names in that team. 4-star reputation club, so a lower reputation than we have here at Volsungur these days. I would like to think we can get through that first knockout round tie pretty safely, all things going well. Third in League, although nothing to sneeze at, but PSG absolutely running away with League A, and they are 13 points behind them, so I think this is a team who we should be getting the business done over come the start of next week. But that will do it for today's episode. We picked up wins in our last two games of the Champions League group stage. Unfortunately, things did not go as well for the other Icelandic teams down in the Conference League. It's just us out of Iceland in the knockouts, and as you can see on screen, we take on Lille in the first knockout round. If you did enjoy today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. And until the start of next week, I don't imagine we'll do too much transfer business, because I think I'm going to leave that until the start of the next European season. One area we might be looking at improving is at left back. A few of the younger prospects we have coming through haven't quite developed as much as I would like. That does look like the weakest area in the squad, of course, when you consider we do still have Mizkic, who should be coming back for that Lille tie next week. He should recover from his big injury he suffered early this week against Famalicão. He should recover from that broken ankle for that first leg of the first knockout round, so you put him back in that team. For Jonata, I think the biggest weakness might be at left back, so that's probably the area where I would like to target most of that 40-odd million pounds that we do have in the transfer market, but I think we'll leave that until before the start of the next European season. So that's what I'm looking at transfer-wise, but as I said, don't think we're going to do anything before the start of next week with that money anyway. We might sign some young players, but as I said, I don't think we're going to do anything too drastic in terms of the first choice 11, and we'll come back at the start of next week and take on Lille in the first leg of that first knockout round. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.